everyone. We're learning more and more that recovering from long COVID is rarely a straight path. It's more like finding puzzle pieces along the way, one at a time. My guest today recovered from severe ME/CFS triggered by COVID in 3 phases, each using 3 different programs building on each other. Hi, everyone. I'm Raelan. Here you'll find tons of inspiring recovery stories from conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID, so we can keep learning from each other what worked, what didn't, helping us all find the way out faster. I'm so excited to have Jamie Waterhouse with us today, all the way over in Melbourne, Australia. Jamie was hit hard by COVID, leaving her bedbound and even hospitalized. But through a combination of different recovery programs, she rebuilt her energy and her life. And thankfully, she's made a 100% physical recovery, though she's still, understandably, working through lingering health anxiety. And she's bravely sharing that part of her journey with us now as well. So let's dive in. Jamie, amazing to have you here today. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. You were a huge part of my recovery journey, so it's surreal to be here.
Yeah, I would imagine for a number of reasons. So what makes it surreal for you to be doing this here now?
It's to be on the other side of the camera and actually sharing my story and to actually be here. It's surreal that I went through what I went through. It's surreal to be behind the camera, and it's a bit scary.
Understandably, I'm so impressed with all the people that bravely share their story and their journey and put themselves out there. So thank you. I know a lot of people are going to appreciate this. And you've had a really rough, intense journey with this. So take us back. Tell us about that.
All right. So I caught COVID in May 2023, which is a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now. And sadly, I had a horrible infection. I wasn't one of the ones that had a mild infection. It really felt like I was poisoned from about day 3 for about 5 days. I just felt completely poisoned. I started getting tingling up and down my face. Really felt like I was getting neurological symptoms. And that really scared me. Eventually, after about 3 weeks, I did start getting better, which is, as part of the course. But when I started to integrate back into life, go back to work, just look after my son again, I crashed really horribly, really crashed really hard. And at that point, it really felt, the only way I can describe it is it felt like my brain, my soul, and my body were getting pulled in 3 different directions. It was just absolutely horrific. And again, really frightening. I became housebound pretty much straight away, and I couldn't work. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't listen to music. I could barely parent my son. I couldn't read. I couldn't really do much of anything. It really felt like I lost everything that it meant to be me. It lost what it meant to be a human, to be able to just exist in the world. And especially with the loss of independence as well, something I was always proud of, being quite independent, and suddenly felt like that was all ripped away from me. So it's quite horrific. My symptoms included a lot of fatigue, really horrific headaches, confusion, dizzy, the face tingling. I got 3 different types of tinnitus at the same time. The light and sound sensitivity, and I had these really incredible adrenaline dumps. I would wake up and my heart would be pounding and running at over 100 beats per minute, even though I was laying down. And they would last for hours sometimes, so it was really, really intense. I saw GPs. They didn't really have much to offer. They couldn't even tell me I was suffering from long COVID, but I could tell that I was. I saw a kind of holistic doctor as well. She recommended that I do glutathione and vitamin C infusions, which didn't do anything. In fact, I think they made me worse. And I was finally diagnosed through Clinic 19, who are an amazing long COVID clinic here in Australia. They diagnosed me through smartwatch data. They could diagnose me with POTS, and I was experiencing PEM. Unfortunately, they told me that the PEM was from the POTS, and so the consequence of that was that I became obsessed with tracking my heartbeat and making sure it didn't go above 100, and sometimes just keeping it as low as 80, just so that I wouldn't, because I was convinced that if it got any higher than that, that I would then get PEM and feel like I was dying, basically. And I think that was really unhealthy at the time. And eventually, months later, I did ditch the tracking apps, but it took me a long time to get over that. My mum had to come stay with us, and I eventually did have to go stay with her for a month. And it was really heartbreaking not to be able to parent, not to be able to be there for my son. That was it's just one of the most heartbreaking things that can happen. At this point, I got really heavily involved in a protocol that was all about taking about 50 supplements. And it was all about co-infections, being overrun with candida, gut bacteria, and it was all about killing and everything. They would be like, when you take this, you're going to have a side effect. When you take this, you're going to have a side effect. And so, of course, when I took these supplements, I had side effects. And I really, really, truly believe that I was expecting that outcome. So therefore, I was kind of living that outcome. And especially what I learned about the mind body later, I think that is exactly what happens. A huge part of that protocol was the idea that our mineral stores are low, and that's what's causing symptoms. So I got really into Dead Sea mud and rubbing it all over my body for a while, but I also didn't have the energy to bathe properly, so I had to like wash this off, just like sitting in the chair at my mum's, in little buckets that I used to carry around and put my feet in to soak in the Dead Sea mud. And it did, to be honest, it did seem to help, but then I had a huge crash and I was left shaking in bed for 3 days and not able to function at all. I was housebound before that, and then I started becoming bedbound. Unfortunately, at this time, my mum said that she could no longer look after me, that it was too much of a strain on her, and I had to go back home to my partner and son, which was what I wanted in anyway, but it was really hard being told that I was having a negative effect on my mum's health because my health was so poor. So that was really difficult to go through. She lives about 8 hours away from us, and she drove me straight 8 hours while I was in a really huge crash. And anyone who's experienced this knows that how difficult even just driving 5 minutes can be. So the exertion of the car crash made me even sicker. And so then when I got home, I became completely bedbound. I was unable to get out of bed at all to even go to the toilet. I was peeing in a bucket next to the bed, and I was just in this worse mental health stage as well, because I truly believed that this was forever and my life was over. Friends started coming over and giving me back rubs, which seemed to be the only thing that seemed to calm me at the time, because I was constantly on edge. And it was really difficult, as anyone who has been bedbound for a time can tell you. So I was becoming really quite desperate, and so I decided to try some Reiki, so energy healing. And I swear to God, the first session, that feeling on edge went away. Now, what I know about the mind-body connection, what I think happened is that it was the first time that I actually felt safe in my body since I got ill. And I was doing a little bit better after that, but I was still incredibly ill, couldn't get out of bed. And then one day my son needed the hospital. He had a bellyache, and I was so distraught that I couldn't take him, and it just broke me. And I had a psychotic break at that point, and I no longer wanted to live. I started asking the people around me for knives. And so my partner had to come back from the hospital with my child and then come home and call an ambulance for me. And I was terrified, not only for being so sick, but then going to the hospital and what that would mean for having chronic fatigue syndrome and if I was just going to crash when I got to hospital. But luckily, they were absolutely wonderful, and it was kind of the turning point in my journey. They put me on something called olanzapine for the psychotic break. It's an antipsychotic, and it kind of seemed to help my energy levels a bit, and it also helped me sleep, so they ended up keeping me on it. And around about the same time, and I was still doing all these supplements, and around about the same time, the creator of that protocol that I was so deeply involved with was convinced that zinc was the reason that I couldn't move. And so I was so scared to take it because of all the reactions I was having, and he was just messaging me, take the zinc, take the zinc, take the zinc. And eventually I took the zinc, and then he texted me, he's like, you're taking zinc now, so walk. And I was like, no, I can't. He was like, no, you're good, you walk. And so I did. I got out of bed and I did just a couple little steps and then went back into the hospital bed, and then I eventually just built up a little bit, and a little bit. Was it the zinc? I don't know. Or was it my absolute blind faith that this man had the answer and it was going to fix me? So I was in hospital for 3 weeks. They did a lot of rehab, and again, I just built up. They had like some fake set of stairs that I did 1 at a time and then 2 at a time, and walked around the hospital hallways just to get my steps up. And they put me on the whole program of recovery, actually. They were amazing. I was still taking the supplements. I was still in the supplement route. So when I came out of hospital, I decided to try another probiotic. I had tried one previously that really seemed to help my MCAS reactions. So I tried one, and this probiotic sent me into a month-long deep depression, really suicidal, not doing okay. And I just wasn't in the right headspace to go through that anyway, because I was already not doing so well. And it was that point I said, enough. I'm not doing the supplement route anymore. There has to be some sort of other answer. I have to find some other way out of this. Now, what also happened when I was in hospital was I met a nurse who said, last year I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I was crawling on the floor. I couldn't get to my son. I couldn't live, and I'm healed. And that was the first indication that anyone had healed and gotten over this. I truly believed before that point that the only option was to be like this forever. So that was the turning point in believing that maybe I could recover on my own. And this also seemed to coincide with me discovering brain retraining. And that was a real turning point. And that was when I kind of started spiraling upwards in my recovery. So I did Primal Trust at first. And with their brain training method, they have this part of it where you envision light going through your body and into your legs and into the ground. So they have like a stop technique where you tell yourself stop, and then you move through these little mental exercises, and then you also imagine the light going through you. So what I would do is when I was expanding activity, I would imagine this light going through my body into the ground, through my legs into the ground. And I would do that to kind of keep myself calm as I was expanding. I also watch a lot of Miguel's videos. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Miguel
Batista?
Yeah. And about how the body isn't really feeling safe. And so what I would do is I would also tell myself, you're safe, you're okay, you're safe. So anytime a symptom popped up when I was expanding activity, I'd just say, you're safe, and imagine this light running through my body. And so it started working, and I started expanding activity. It was slow, it was purposeful, but it worked. And one day I remember I had such bad sound sensitivity. I used to have to wear earplugs and noise-cancelling headphones at the same time. And then one day I decided to take them off, and I just told myself I was safe, and I never needed the earplugs or headphones again. It was an incredible moment, and that was when I realised that this might be the way out. I did start to see improvement, but I was terrified of everything. The idea of driving, the idea of going to the supermarket again, the idea of taking my son to daycare, everything was scary. And I believe that my body was just on edge and that I was just still in a state of fight or flight, and I was still in a state of survival, basically. So I joined the Healing Dude. They have a great program. It's really good for the community as well. You kind of get connected with people who encourage you to do stuff every day. And they have a pillar of healing around facing fears. So that's what I did. I was terrified, but I went to the shops. I was terrified. I started driving again, terrified, taking my son to daycare. But every time I did something that I was terrified of, I clawed my life back. Even doing things like they suggest walking twice a day. That was scary. What if I crashed doing a second walk that day? And I really had to get out of that thinking, that really negative spiral that I was in my brain, that everything was bad for me, basically. I got 90% better, but I still had a little bit of fatigue. And it was at this point I did the lightning process. I really, really love the lightning process, brain retraining technique. But I was disappointed because it didn't magically work straight away. And there's people who do the lightning process who say it magically works straight away, and it didn't for me. So, but I kept it up. And what I used to do is, rather than do it all day, every day, I would do it every time I went to the toilet. I would do it at the start of the day, at the end of the day, bookend the day with it, and really just told myself through the process that I was safe and that things were okay. So again, that message of safety was super important for me. And slowly but surely, I started recovering, and I was emotionally still not 100%, so I did some sessions of faster EFT with Lalita Mohini, who you've also had on your channel before, and that just really helped me move some emotional blockers that I was facing at the time. And so I just inched forward, and at that point I started to think maybe I'm actually better now, and it's just the anxiety of what I've been through that's still holding me back. And so I started facing that, and then I decided one day I'm healed again. And so I went back to work 4 days, and I look after my son the other day, and I'm doing pottery, and I'm living life again. The only thing that I'm kind of unhappy with is that the olanzapine that the hospital put me on is really hard to come off. And so now I'm kind of stuck on this drug that I don't want to be on anymore. I kind of wish I hadn't been kept on it, but such is life. That's part of the journey, I suppose. So, yeah, that's my journey.
Jamie, oh my goodness. I'm sure everyone watching is with me on this, where I just like, oh, all that you've been through. I am so, so sorry. I can't even begin to imagine what this has been like for you, for anyone, especially with a child.
Yes.
And so many things that you tried. I love hearing about the different programs, and I'm going through the reels in my mind. So for people listening, watching, I'll link in the description, because I've done interviews with you mentioned Primal Trust. So I've interviewed Kat King, the founder, and the Healing Dudes. I have an interview with them, and Miguel Batista I have multiple interviews with, and Lightning Process coaches I have interviews with. So if you want people listening and watching want to learn more, I'll share those in the description, because they're really great programs. Oh, and I missed one at the end. You said one more.
Lalita.
Lalita. I love Lalita. Lalita Holmes. Yes. That one we'll make sure to include as well. So many questions. Where to start? I guess, this was a horrific journey for you. If you wanted to go back to the beginning, what were the things you wish you would have known from the start?
The biggest thing I wish I'd known was that it is possible to recover. I was really COVID cautious before I got COVID, but the reason I was is because I'd heard stories of long COVID, and I believed because of those stories that it was forever, and I truly didn't see a way out. And that's when my mental health just went really down the toilet. If I could just tell myself that this is a season, this isn't forever, there is a way out. You don't have to do the crazy protocols. You don't have to have all these side effects to the protocols as well. You can get yourself out of this. That is what I wish I'd known.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to fear. Some sort of message that we could go back and tell ourselves that we don't need to be afraid.
Yes, that's
It's
exactly.
going to get past this. This isn't going to kill us. This isn't going to be forever. Our bodies aren't broken. We're going to get our lives back. It's okay. You don't need to be afraid every moment of every day, because that's how you mostly feel when you're going through this.
Yeah.
I was listening as you were speaking, and I'm thinking most of us have been through some version of this on a spectrum, of severity. And so we sort of get it, but I feel that we lack the vocabulary to even really explain this.
Yeah.
Because, if someone hasn't been through it, how do you explain what that feels like to be snatched from your life, to be in constant suffering and constant fear, not being able to do anything you used to be able to do. All the people in the medical community that you trusted don't seem to, for the most part, have answers for you, and you're left on your own to figure it out. It seems like an impossible situation. You can see why people get so hopeless, and so many people. I appreciate you being so brave and honest and open about the feelings of hopelessness and wanting to die, because a lot of guests share that. And for people going through it, if you're feeling that way, it's normal and it's okay and it's understandable. But just to zoom out and see the big picture of, there's so much hope and potential for recovery.
Yeah. I think it would have made a big difference.
Yeah. So you had talked a little bit before, Jamie, before we started this interview, when we were preparing for this, that you still have some health anxiety. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So I still, in my brain, I still have that looping thought sometimes. What if this makes me crash? And it's almost been a year since I've had a crash, and I still have that a little bit. I still worry that this is going to happen again one day, that I don't have control over what happened. I don't have control of it happening again. And I think it's a normal part of recovery, but I don't see people talk about it much, because people don't talk about it much, but I think it must be a normal part of recovery, because it's so human to not want to go through that again. And so I remember even showering. It took 6 months for me to enjoy showering again, even though I was doing it daily and I was able to do it and I was fine doing it. It reminded me every single day of when I couldn't handle the noise of the shower. I couldn't handle the sensation of it, that I couldn't even get myself out of bed to get into the shower. And every day I'd hop in the shower and have that thought, what if this makes me crash? And I was like, no, you have been fine for months now. This is fine. And I actually remember the moment when I enjoyed a shower again, and I was like, I'm healing. I'm finally healing inside of me, not just physically as well. So it's still a journey. Every day, I'm back at work 4 days a week as well. And even when I go to work, I'm wondering, is this too much? Am I doing too much? But there's a bit of faith. And I have that faith that I'm okay now. And so I just know that it's a bit of anxiety, which is normal for what happened. And I kind of accept it, listen to it, and then let it pass. And I kind of treat everything now in a bit of a TMS approach, which I'm sure you've heard about. I don't know what TMS stands for, but it's more about accepting where you are in the journey and then continuing on with life anyway, knowing that if anything, any symptoms popped up, anything happens, it's not going to kill me, which you said before. I'm going to be okay. I'm safe. I'm happy. I'm working again. I'm doing parenting again. I'm able to watch TV again, read again, do all the things that I love. And I just take that approach to it now.
Yeah, I'm thinking as you're speaking, and I feel absolutely confident in saying that this is 100% a normal, understandable part of recovery that I suspect virtually everyone goes through. And the TMS that you mentioned, I love that tension myositis syndrome. Took me quite a while to remember because it's a mouthful. From Dr. John Sarno. For people who aren't aware, he's one of the early pioneers of mind-body medicine. Amazing. He's got a book called Healing Back Pain, that sounds like it has nothing to do with long COVID or ME/CFS, but I promise you, for many people, it does. But I'm thinking, because we talk about in recovery, judge your progress with recovery, not on the presence or absence of symptoms, but in your reaction to those symptoms. So when they come up, do you react with fear, or are you just like, okay, we knew this was going to happen. It's fine. Yeah. I don't love it, but just wait it out. And I imagine it's very similar with the emotional reactions we have once we are recovering and do recover. Like, okay, here's anxiety. We knew this was going to come up, but you don't need to get stuck there. Don't need to spiral and start to panic. Just, all right, yeah, this is going to happen. All right, I know I'm okay. Remind yourself those messages of safety. And I think it's just a process. I think it's like with everything with the physical symptoms, and you have to slowly work away the fear around taking your child to daycare, going to the supermarket, taking a shower, all of those things. It's going to be the same thing. Once you're through it, it just keeps going. I don't see there's a way where you just instantly no longer question, because symptoms, you still get symptoms too. You're not going to feel great for the rest of your life. So navigating that, is this normal? Is it not? Yeah, this is probably a normal symptom, and I'm okay.
I actually remember the first time I got sick again after being well. I had gastro, which I caught off my son, and I had to remind myself that this is normal. Normal people get sick. Normal people get knocked out for a week or a couple of days. You're going to be okay as well. So I feel like it's a journey that is going to continue for a long time, just the messages of safety, basically.
Yeah, and we should do more videos and talk about this more. I'm very glad you brought it up, because I say a lot, we frame recovery like this magical finish line where everything after is happily ever after and just rainbows and roses, but it's a whole other phase of navigating things that virtually everyone I talk to struggles with. I've been recovered for about 5 years now. And I think that I'm like, okay, I'm good. And I had years, those first few years, scared of the flu, scared of getting tired, all of those things. Is this normal? And then I realized every time I work, I have to be on a couch with my feet up. And I tell myself that I just like being comfortable. And even when I go into co-working spaces like WeWork, I find a couch, I put my feet up, I got some pillows, I'm comfy, and I'm like, I just like being comfortable. But I had a revelation just a couple months ago, 5 years later. I'm scared of sitting up at a desk all day, because after 10 years of I have to conserve energy, sitting up at a desk all day is not feasible for me. So it's just, I think it's normal. And the more we talk about it, the more we can all be like, it's okay. We don't have to be perfect from the beginning. It's okay to still have these lingering things that we're working through, because there's no way around it.
It makes me think, I completely understand that fear of sitting, because I remember when I first started sitting up in bed, my body ached. It was like I was working out. And you mentioned a good thing about that fear we have, that we have to move through it. It's the same with recovery, or whether it's emotional or physical, there's an element of moving through the symptoms, and an element of accepting that they might be there, but it's okay and we're okay. And so you have to do that through symptoms, you have to do it through emotions. And sadly, it's the journey that we have to do to get better. But there is amazing things on the other side of that journey, and it's possible.
Yeah. And just to keep that self-compassion piece going. I've been through a lot. I've been through a trauma. It's okay that I'm still worried about some things, still struggle once in a while. It's good. It's fine. Anyone would be feeling this way. It is the normal human experience. And just be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Jamie, this has been amazing. I want to, for people watching, I'm going to link here an interview that I did with an amazing woman named Lindsay. It reminded me of your story when you talked about being trapped in bed and you couldn't even get out to use the bathroom and you had a bucket beside you. She had a Tupperware container. I think nothing depicts the nightmare you're going through better than that description, like to really bring home how tough it is. So she is another great story for people listening and watching that I really encourage you to check out. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this, Jamie. So happy for you that you made it through this and that you're here sharing your story and helping other people and inspiring people with all that you've learned. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Raelan.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who's listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you in this next video here with Lindsay.